He married her because she was quick, neat, and intelligent. He divorced her because she had absolutely no patience with the children who were sometimes slovenly, and stupid. She married him because he was a real sport. She divorced him because he refused to give up the sporting life. He married her because they shared the same intellectual and political beliefs. He divorced her because she wasn't interested in anything but the house and the kids. She married him because he was so courteous and attentive in all the little things that matter to a woman. She divorced him because he was so punctilious about little things, right? Meaning over anxious, and so oblivious to important things. He married her because all the other men were so impressed with her magnificent figure. He divorced her after the third child because she had let herself go. So, the last one is where we are. That's where we are, right? Where we're talking about you have children. So, remember I said that marriage is a time and it's a gift with great opportunity, but there are many adversaries. And we have to be able to point out and see the adversaries, or we can have a marriage that could get into trouble. So what I read a while ago, the source is Sidney Harris, okay? This is recorded, right? Because I want, if it's not recorded, I wish, but you cannot take notes tonight. Okay, because I wish you would, be able to go back over this. Now, here's what we have to understand. Even though Christian marriage should be permanent, it is not an endless romance where we live happily ever after. It's not. Now, I was telling Donnie I wanted my wife to be here tonight, but some things happened just before we got here, so she couldn't come here, just so that she could identify with some of the things that I'll share. Now, so it's not endless romance. So marriage is about growth and development. Wherever there is growth and development, there's going to be some periods of discomfort and dissatisfaction. There's going to be pain. Anywhere you have growth and development, you can expect discomfort. It's not going to be a time of all comfort. In fact, you're dealing with a number of crises, right, that will come your way. And when you're dealing with crises, you're going to have to understand that it could be excruciating, and the stress and pressure of dealing with the crises could make you feel very dissatisfied in the marriage. Now, there is something that is called developmental stage of marriage. There's something called developmental stage of marriage. So first, the romantic stage. In the romantic stage, everything is perfect. There's nothing is wrong with anybody. Everything is perfect. So you have looked in the eyes of love. That's it. Everything is perfect. You don't see anything wrong with one another. That's the romantic stage. If you are still at that stage, God bless you. Right? Okay. But you don't see anything wrong with it. So that's the romantic stage. Okay. So you have also the bargaining stage. So after the romantic stage, you have the bargaining stage. The bargaining stage is, hey, I see something wrong with you. And if you change, then I'll change. That's the bargaining stage. Then you also have the coercive stage. The coercive stage is, listen, you better change. You better change. That's the coercive stage. Right? Now, after the coercive stage, you have the stage of desperation. The stage of desperation is, listen, I can't change you. Even God can change you, so I'm out of here. You may not physically move, but mentally you may begin to distance yourself. Right? And then finally you have the acceptance stage. So if you go through the developmental stages, what we really want to see is that you reach a point where you accept a person for who he or she is. That all of us have flaws. And so we're going to work together. So now you understand that you cannot just have an endless romance and living happily ever after. Because marriage requires growth and development. And if you're going to grow and develop, you'll have pain. If you're going to grow and develop, you're going to have times of discomfort. Right? So the very thing that drew you to the person may be obnoxious to you during that period. Right? So you have to understand all of that. Now, so how are we going to deal with this? How are we going to deal with this? How are we going to deal with this? During that period, this is Christian marriage, during that period, it is important that you as a couple have deep devotional intimacy with God during that time. You have to have an anchor. I'm telling you, like deep devotional intimacy with God. Okay, that's another topic all by itself. So, why that is important? If that isn't there, then you run the risk of letting feelings begin to control your marriage. Feelings begin to control your marriage. So, I don't feel this and I don't feel that and I'm not happy. See, you run the risk of letting feelings begin to control your marriage. And that's why you have to have an anchor, which is deep devotional intimacy with God, right? Okay. Now, there is something else that you need to look at, right? By the way, I didn't know you were going to have all this, so I didn't bring a PowerPoint, right? I didn't know you were going to have all this. But I wish I could have write on the board. But look here. This matter of the feeling of love, like people want to know that they feel that they are in love. They feel it. The feeling of being in love. It's romantic. The feeling of being in love is romantic. In fact, in the romance stage, you can get any amount of money you want from a man. Right? Right? It's the feeling of being in love. It just makes you so generous. You get what I'm saying? It's like one man said, right? Let me say it. Said, with somebody to love, even the most severely affected can make it. Someone to love, right? So there's something about, like, when you feel you're in love, I mean, you can see it all on your face, right? You're just generous, you're just happy, and you church come alive. But that period is just a great time, right? Just a great time. People see it, right? But as I said, that it's never an endless road of development, and so you're going to have some discomfort. So this feeling of being in love, it's something that will be tested. And so it's important that you understand that the feeling of love or the feeling of being in love is good, but it is not primary. Your marriage should never reach a point where you are measuring everything on the feeling of being in love. Right? Because you're going to reach a point where you say, I don't feel like I'm in love with you. Right? And that happens a lot during the time when married folk are dealing with children. That's the time when a lot of that come up. So, deep unity is what is important. Deep unity. Deep unity. What is deep unity, right? What is deep unity? First, the will. You have to make a decision in your mind that it doesn't matter what the situation is, I have decided to love this woman. I'm talking about deep unity, right? Because it's not always going to be comfortable. It's not always going to be comfortable. We have to make, so that's the first thing with deep unity, is your will, a decision of the will. I have made up my mind that no matter what is going on here, I made up my mind to love this woman, no matter what. Okay, so that's the will. But you also, in order to keep the commitment to that decision, you have to have the support of habits. So you have will and you have habits. You can't tell me that you made a decision to love me no matter what, but your habits not supporting it. Are you getting what I'm saying? So you have to have habits, right? You have to have habits that support that that decision of the will. But there's something else also. There's something else also. So it's not just will, it's not just habits, right? This is why a successful marriage, right, is not just a man and a woman. A successful marriage is a man, a woman, and God. Right? So, okay, so will, you have habits. I'm going to come to so this is deep unity. After you have habits, you also have reinforcement. The reinforcement of grace. The reinforcement of grace. Remember, we are not perfect. You know, I remember my father-in-law used to tell a story about a man who said that was criticizing churches, say all these critics in the church and all that. So my father-in-law said, the man told the guy who complained, all these hypocrites in the church, he said, if you find a perfect church, don't join it because you will spoil it. Right? You get what I'm saying? So there is no perfect there's no perfect marriage, right? So the reinforcement of grace. Listen, you come to some point in your marriage where you raise your hand, you say, God, give me grace. Right? You have those experiences. Give me more grace. Right? But the song says more grace, right? When the burdens grow greater. Right? So this is why it's important that you understand deep unity, the decision of the will, the habits, right? And reinforcement. God gives more grace. He gives his Holy Spirit to help you. Right? And that's the problem with secular marriages. They don't have the reinforcement of grace. They don't have the divine help. Christian marriages have the divine help. Okay, so now let's look at some of the habits, right, that do not support the decision of the will to say, I love you no matter what. Let's look at some of them. For instance, the habit of putting work before marriage. Now, it's interesting to note, right, that every poll you do, right, or questionnaire, and you ask married people, what is more important, work or marriage? They say marriage, but they spend more time with work than marriage. Right? Okay. So, you could develop a habit where you put work in front of marriage. Also, you could develop the habit of becoming dismissive and taking one another for granted. You develop that habit. You become dismissive and you take one another for granted. There's another habit. The habit of giving up recreational interests and depend on the marriage to provide excitement. So the marriage by itself is not going to provide any excitement. It's just like a plant. You have to nurture it. Right? So there are some people who enjoyed maybe biking or playing tennis or whatever. They get married. Okay, my spouse not interested, so I'm done with that. No. You need to have time for some kind of recreation. It helps your marriage. It doesn't have to be any of those things I just said, right? But recreation is important, right? So you know, you spike up your marriage. You have the kind of interest that is needed. Look at this: the habit of drifting. You know, it's amazing, right? Drifting is something else. Drifting. You could just drift, you know. You just drift. It's not that you don't love each other. Why do you drift? You drift because you don't invest in your marriage. What you're doing here is investing in your marriage. That's what you're doing. So if you come to marriage club, oh, why are you going marriage club? What do you mean why are you going marriage club? You're investing in your marriage. Yeah. Okay, so you say, all right, Independence last weekend. So early in the year or whatever, 2 years ago, you decide you're planning because boy, 2022, we're going to go Bahama for the whole Independence weekend. Or somebody say, it's a waste. What do you mean it's a waste of money? You are investing in your marriage. That's what you're doing. It's not a waste of money. You see, and this is why you drift. You drift because you're not investing in your marriage. You just drift. You think the marriage just going to survive? You think it's just going to survive? You just drift. You get up one morning, you don't even know each other. Just drifting. Okay, here's another bad habit. The habit of irresponsibly, and this is another thing, consumer spending. Consumer spending can be a bad habit because it could put you in a lot of debt. And when a marriage is in a lot of debt, believe me, it causes tension. Right? You can't get to do certain things, and you know it could cause real problem, especially if feeling is really in control. Okay, and then the habit of being secretive. Now I could say a whole lot about that, but we don't have any time. Because marriage was self-disclosure. They were naked, they were not ashamed. Can't be secretive. So we've seen so many bad situations, right? Where couples are like fighting and kicking one another, try, just to make sure somebody don't get the phone, right? Because God knows what's on the phone, right? So, you know, the partner doesn't want the other to see the phone. Okay. Now, I'm not saying that you can't have boundaries, right? And you can't differentiate, because each person is an individual. All right? But if I put my phone on the table and it's ringing and my wife is right there and I jump in over chairs to get it quickly, you know, that's a problem. That's a problem. That's what I think. I think that's a problem. She right there, let her answer it. You see what I'm saying? So you have these bad habits, right? These secretive. You know, you have some couples, they do what the FBI and the CIA and so on. They're secretive. You know, they hold a lot of secrets, and that's not good for marriage. Marriage requires self-disclosure. You have to disclose. Because at the deeper level of your disclosure is the deeper unity you have. So you have to disclose. This is why we have reinforcement of grace. Sometimes we have to apologize. We have to say we are sorry. We have to say we did wrong. Right? And the one who's receiving that, meaning the one who is offended, must understand the nature and power of grace and receive the apologies. Hello? Okay. So, almost done. Watch this. Almost done. So, what we need, let me repeat, right? I really want you to get this. So we're talking about we need deep unity, because we can't run our marriage on the feeling of love. Although the feeling of love is important, because if the feeling of love is not there, it's going to affect making love. Are you hearing me? So the feeling of love is important. But if we're going to protect the feeling of love, we have to have deep unity. And then I'm going to come to what is called physical connectedness. So you have to have deep unity. Decision of the mind, the will, no matter what's going on. I love you. Period. I'm going to be here for you. But there have to be habits that support the decision of the will. These habits that I just mentioned do not support the decision of the will. So you have to find unifying habits. Unifying habits. Unifying habits. Unifying habits. For you to have unifying habits, it means what you need is what is called habit replacement. Habit replacement. Habit replacement. You have to replace those habits, because you need habits that foster physical connectedness. When Adam saw Eve, what did he say? It's not bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. Right? Physical attraction is important. Physical attraction is important. right? Nobody should be. I mean, you see your husband, you run in the next room, or you see her, you run in there. Who's this person? No. No. So, I mean, I go in the room, if I see my wife bathing, everything come up. Hear everything. Why? There must be things you're doing that create physical connectedness, right? Because a lot of people don't know the means to an end. They're always trying to get to the end. They always want the end, but they don't want the means. You understand what I'm saying? They want the end, but they don't want the means. And this is why, particularly in sexuality, right, there's a problem. Women often feel used. Because you get the end, but then you don't work the means. Okay, so look at this now. So keep this in your head. Unifying habits. That's what I'm coming to. Unifying habits that foster physical connectedness. When Adam saw Eve, he was physically connected to her. He was physically attracted to her. Are you getting me? Physically attracted. Okay. So, look at these. Habits that keep couples in proximity to one another create an environment for human sensuality and romance. Okay? Thus, the relationship has a climate that fosters the feeling of love, which enhances making love. The feeling of love will always enhance making love. Period. Okay, so couples who experience low sexual desires will see a marked uptick in their desires when unifying is practiced. So, let me tell you some of the unifying habits. These are so, you don't even have to spend to do these unifying habits that we don't have any time for, right? Look at it. Mutual reading of scripture. Like the two of you reading it together. Mutual reading of scripture. Praying together. Worshiping together. Cuddling together. Walking together. Exercising together. Bathing together. Eating together. Having fun together. Talking together. Mutual touching and sharing of appreciation. Sharing gifts with one another. Writing love notes to one another. Discussing feelings and sexual preferences. Resting well. Eating well. Sleeping together. You have to pay any money for this? Huh? But we don't do it. So these are unifying habits. Unifying habits.
So sorry, I would have to
So if we practice the unifying habits, we will have physical connectedness, and the physical connectedness will keep the romance alive. The sensuality that comes from physical connectedness will make sexuality exciting. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. So, if you are not prepared in this way, then children come into the marriage and you're caught off guard because you're not together. So you don't understand what it is to parent together because you haven't been doing anything together. Right? I didn't remember some of the other stuff like cooking together. You do things together. Just do things together. So you come together as a team. And you know what will happen? Because you come together as a team with the help of God, the reinforcement of grace, the team becomes stronger. And guess what? The romance start